What's better, talking to your friends or talking to your woman about your emotions?
I'm going to just say this. I'm going to look to the camera and say, guys, do not talk to your girlfriend about you.
Why do I say this? I feel like that's a lot of red pill talk.
There's some things that men are supposed to be in women's eyes, and there's some things that are never supposed to see. And your woman's not supposed to see you cry. I don't care if your family passed away, you're not supposed to cry. And it's not because you're not emotional. You come and cry to me, come and cry to your boy, come and cry to your sister. You do not cry to your woman. It's sometimes like women, it's not their fault. They just like hypergamous inside their body. It's not their fault.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of y'all, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. I think the sound was clear on that one. You heard that gentleman say that you don't let women see you cry. And you also heard him say it's not their fault. It's just something that they can't help it. It's like a hypergamy. Gentlemen, I'm going to tell you both sides of this coin. On one hand, you cannot be very emotional around them. That doesn't make it right. You see, two things can be true at the same time. You can't afford to be too emotional around them, and on the other hand, that does not make it okay. Now, the reason that it is not okay is because they get on you about not opening up. They want to know more of what you're thinking, what you're feeling. They say that they want that. You show it to them. It's the duplicity and the lying that makes it wrong. They themselves lie to you and say, that's not true. You can open up, like Sadia sitting on the couch. I think that's a red pill talk. She's the one that fuels some of the red pill knowledge. She is helping to make men in the UK and in the US more red pill aware because of what she talks about. So for any of them to sit up and say, well, you need to be more open and tell us about your emotions, for them to say that in a nutshell and then turn around and hold that against the men that do open up is duplicitous. To cover it up, if you're going to do this, is duplicitous. And the duplicity is wrong. Lying is wrong in this case. Do they tolerate it when you lie to them? Nope. You have to lie to them in many cases. If you want peace, they still don't tolerate it when you lie to them. So sometimes we make this mistake of thinking that there are certain things that they cannot help, and it's wrong. They can't. There are times we're right about them not being able to help something. But there are times that we're wrong about them not being able to help it. And sometimes they can't help it, but you still have to hold them accountable because they lie. So it may not be what the truth is for which you hold them accountable because they can't help it, but you hold them accountable because they can choose to tell the truth. That is what it is. Do not let them come along and act like children and then say, oh, they can't help that. If they have to go through puberty like we do, that means they have to leave childhood behind and go to adulthood. This means not only physically, but psychologically. They are capable of adult intellect and morality. And that's why I'm not going to sit up here and allow us to infantilize them so that they can get away with stuff and then turn around and say that they're still grown enough to catch a ding-a-ling, still grown enough to catch a husband. Women that cannot grow up, that do not grow up, need to stay with their dads, maybe an older brother or younger brother for that matter, for the rest of their lives. That's what that needs to be. See, there are places where they grow up, where they have to grow up. And life is tough in these places and maybe tougher than what they deserve. But we're making a mistake when we sit up here and act like, well, they shouldn't have to actually grow up. They shouldn't have to actually behave like adults. We make an error treating them like that. No, they should have to. That's normal. That's what life is. It is not okay that you were held to all of these standards of adulthood and duplicity and having to read minds. And then we sit up here and start giving adults a pass to act like children in the name of they can't help it. The idea that they can't help it is actually part of a conspiracy. It doesn't require them to all sit down in one board meeting at the same time and somehow make sure that no guy is in on this. That's not required for it to be a conspiracy. I've stated to you before that when you're dealing with the good women of the West, part of the problem with the good women is that they don't necessarily come out and say what it is all the time. That's a recent phenomenon. There are times when there are good women that look at what these overgrown children are doing, and they're sitting back and saying, well, since I don't act like that and I don't do that, then that makes me special. And in order to stay special, I'm not going to say anything about what they are doing. I'm just going to be better. And it's fine to say, well, I'm going to focus on being better. But what they're doing is they're saying, well, I'm going to say nothing about what they're doing. I'm not going to encourage them. I'm going to simply use this as an opportunity to shine without doing the work. That's what they're doing. That's why a lot of them don't want to go somewhere else. A lot of well-behaved ladies don't want to go somewhere else. Suki Hana does not necessarily want to go to a conservative part of the planet. She doesn't want to do that, I know. But the thing is that you take Suki Hana not wanting to go, you know what? The women that act opposite to her in terms of decorum also don't want to go to places where it is that, you know what, as a lady, you must act like this if you want any provision from a man. They're no different. What they want to do is remain a big fish in a small pond. And that's why I say to you, gentlemen, don't make the mistake of looking in the West. It would be nice, but you can't make that mistake of looking in the West. You must look elsewhere. You must look where they need to behave a particular way. You can look in areas where they can go the thought route where they're selling box and they still got to be polite and act like adults, or they can go the responsible wife route. You have to look in areas like this. You have to look in places like this. Or you can go to places where, you know what, there's no tolerance for the ones that go the thought route. They stay in their little corners and they just wait for Johns and Tricks to show up. And there's a reason that those guys are Johns and Tricks. Thus, that's another place you can look. But you can't look in these Western super liberal societies thinking you're going to find someone that really at their core has these values and morals, because the truth be told, they will thrive off of the ones who don't. By being normal and by being basic, they shine by comparison and contrast alone. And that's what they were looking for. And then when you do wife them up, if you're not careful, later on, you come to realize that, you know what, they were having affairs too. And you were supposed to be patient with that. They were having affairs and you weren't supposed to have a problem with that. They were having affairs and that was supposed to be okay, or rather that they were having affairs, but you can have a problem with that. The thing is that if you decide to do what a man does when he finds out that his housewife, his traditional wife, was having an affair, then she takes half and then spends that money she didn't earn, or she's not earning right now, and spends it on a boy toy. So then you got to pay alimony like OJ had to pay Nicole Brown Simpson so that she can turn around and give that to a boy toy. If you're a young guy and you're considered a bull and you got some older lady and she's spending money on you, best believe best believe that's not money she earned. She inherited it or she got it from alimony, but best believe that is not money that she is earning, because when they have to earn their own money, they refuse to spend it for long on a man, no matter what kind of man he is. Vivica Fox, anyone? No alimony, no inheritance. She got her money acting, and she did. Whether it's half, whatever it is that she got her money acting. But here's the thing. When Vivica Fox was married, she was married a year and a half, and she said, I got tired of reaching in my wallet and paying for stuff. She didn't have anything else to say. She couldn't say he was abusive, he cheated, nothing else. She got tired of reaching in the wallet and paying, because she earned the money. Nicole Brown Simpson wasn't going to get tired of paying off Ron Goldman. Wasn't going to happen. I'm not saying OJ did it. I'm saying that she was not going to get tired. I mean, come on, she had the money. She was collecting alimony checks from OJ. Ron Goldman's banging out this MILF with a whole lot of work done on her body. And you know what? Was he really going to be able to spend all that money on her? I don't know what his personal finances were like. But from my understanding, he worked a regular job. You see where this is going? So yeah, you're facing that. That's what you're looking at. You're looking at a major conspiracy, and even the good ones, to a certain extent, have decided not to blow it out of the water and pull everything off, pull the wool off of it. They've decided not to do it because it makes them seem better than what they actually are. And to the ones who are calling it out, I tip my hat to you. I mean that. They most certainly are. To the ones that are calling it out, I do want to say this though. Know that if it ever comes out, that is something that you feel like you're missing, and that's why you were ready to call this out, that we're going to have problems. If you're calling it out because it's wrong, fine. But if you're calling it out only because you feel like there's something you're missing and it made it to where you would not have been able to get the same benefits as some other thought from doing the same thing and playing the same games, and this gets exposed, we will have issues. So in doing so, just make sure you were doing it for the wrong reasons. Some have done this and that mask has come off. And that's all there is to it. We see it, we call them chameleons, and we don't generally respect them once we find out that someone is a chameleon. The question then becomes, why were they doing it? Why was Melanie King doing this? Is it a grift? Is it just to make money, be famous on YouTube? Is that her reason? Whatever it is, we know she's a chameleon because when a man posed a challenging question and he wasn't even hateful, he didn't sound like he had any kind of hate for her at all. What did she do? Went off on a tirade, a rant, and that mask came off. And she said, "You're just mad because I'll never sit on," and started calling him Angry Inch. I'll never forget that. I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what was wrong from before, but even I used to say, look, there's something going on here. And the fact remains that if she was younger, I mean, she already ran off a husband. If she was younger and if she looked like that before the surgery, would she have ever come to this? No. I also looked at Rebecca Lynn Pope. We all know about that. April Mason. She even said, "I refuse to apologize for taking up for my cousin because there was an investigation done and she didn't make up nothing." Well, how come she didn't come out and say what it was that the cops found out? I mean, just because they decided not to go after her cousin. But I think initially they did. We never heard anything after that. Whatever the case is, she did not come out and decide to clear the air. So, all it really came down to is she just wasn't going to hold her cousin accountable. End of. Or there's something else that she's hiding. And she's just hoping that nobody remembers her cousin and what her cousin did. And what the evidence showed after her cousin's report, she's just hoping for that. And if she was able to come out and say something and shut me up, I still would say, okay, so I stand corrected. Why did you never state this before the way that you stated that men are just out there men are out there but not being there for women in general, like your cousin? You came out publicly with that. So if there was this other stuff that does exonerate your cousin, why did you not come out with that? Because they were going to go after her for filing a false report. I don't know what the end result was. Some of y'all can tell us in the comments. But you see, even when they've tried to say certain things, there's always something that they felt like they were missing in these particular cases, or they just flip-flopped on the platform. It's always been that with the ones whom I've mentioned. And when it comes to Shay Sade, she took a correction graciously before. Chantel Simone has done what she stayed on the same platform. And Crimson Cure. I've not seen that mask slip off. Now, Chantel has even said, she has said, I have hit the wall and I don't want other women to have to go through this. I can sit up and say, well, why does it take hitting the wall? But she has outright said, yeah, there is deception that comes with all of this in the way that we're raised and socialized and trained. We don't know what it is until we hit it. So that could very well be the case. So I don't go after her. I do say, okay, this is an example of learning too late, but I'm not going to go after her because she said that. She said, yeah, I learned too late. And I'm trying to fix it for somebody else or help someone else avoid it. But understand that when they say, well, don't talk about your emotions, they're right. But don't sit up and say, well, don't talk about your emotions, but that's not their fault. I do say certain things are not people's fault a lot when the evidence shows this, but do not make the mistake of thinking that this is one of the things that's not their fault. Because if this is not their fault, which is fine, then they lied about it. Why do they lie about it? Why don't they let that cat out the bag? Don't do it because we cannot respond in a positive way to you showing your emotions. Why don't they just come out and say it? We can't respond. We can't respond in a positive and construction way. We have to hold it against you if you get emotional around us. Why don't they just go ahead and say that's who they are? We can't help it. Wouldn't we respect them more for that? The reason why men go through this rage, and I try to explain this, and Daquan Wiltshire one day is going to have to understand this like others if he ever wants to constructively understand what's going on. The reason why there is such a thing as this red pill rage is because of the lies and the deception and this widespread conspiracy that even well-behaved women don't want to expose. That is not okay. For them to decide they're just going to close their mouths and let it keep running because they don't want anyone. No, that's not okay. Yes, they are required to give up, to blow this out of the water, to pull the wool off. They're required to expose this conspiracy, to rat, to snitch. They're required to do that. If you're really going to be good for goodness sake or for the Lord's sake, then there are times when you have to do exactly what we black folk love to sit up and say. The opposite of it. We have to do what we love to sit up and say the opposite of. We love to say, don't snitch. Yes, snitch. I've actually had to tell my students at times, your educational system is suffering because you all have this thing of cheating is not wrong and then don't snitch. That's where the issue comes in. And at some point, you've got to stop supporting this notion of no snitching, and it's not really cheating when they do it. No, I had to tell my students years ago, and eventually the message sank in. And now it's the same thing you got to tell to the sisters. No, you're going to have to go ahead and give them up. What you know about, you have to come out and say. Do like Red Film Diaries. Those confessions are the only things that are valuable at this point. We don't want to hear anything else. Rat somebody out. And then understand why it is. And if you really, really want to be good and shake off these bad influences, you might need to go somewhere third world. I hope that what I've said is a benefit. But let's stop saying that something is not their fault when it actually is. Let's stop sitting up here and saying, well, you know, that's how it is, and they really can't help it. That's fine to say when that is the case, but let's stop giving them passes when they lie about stuff or when they can help something. Let's stop doing that. And I believe that they can tolerate when men show emotions. They can't tolerate when men are always emotional and not in control of their emotions, but I know they can tolerate when men show emotion. How do we know that? I'll give you one fine example that proves this before I go. Daquan Wiltshire shows emotion. Morpheus of the base Pluto shows emotion. Both are expressive. But Daquan Wiltshire shows outbursts in a roasting manner. And he will sit up and tell you, and the one thing he is serious about, he's not joking about, he's serious when he tells you that he bits Gitches. And he ain't no internet ninja, even though he gets paid through the internet. Really, what it is what emotion you show and how stereotypically niggerish you are when you show it amongst our people that determines. That's really what determines the difference. And they need to be honest about that too. And if they can't help it, then they're just some she-boons, just like the KKK says they are. And they believe that what the KKK says, which is why they act like that. And we have to abandon them. That's all it is. If they can't help it. Because in order to get to the point they can't help it, they had to go through something that made them unnatural. I have seen in other cultures where they can't handle it, you just have to remain in control. Thank you for listening, and I hope this helps. As always, black heart, black mind, black out. Assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual non-select male power just because they don't like it in black patriarchy until extinction of judgment day. Thank you again for flying with us on Jet Black Airways, where jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender justice forever.